everybody out there hear me okay?
Does this mic work okay?
Yeah. We've got two more. They don't work? They work. We're gonna wait just a couple more minutes because this is an unusual meeting place, and I just want to make sure everybody who's wandering around outside finds us. We got those big audience. Let's do this. Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order now. With the board, we have a quorum present. In fact, we have all 5 members. I'm Bob Avery, I'm the president. John Perrier is the vice president here, 2 places to my right. Chris Arndt is on the telephone, listening to us on speaker right now because the weather prevented her from coming down from Iowa today. And then we have Jim Dawkins here to my right. And then we also have Ron Callis, who's our treasurer. He wears 2 hats. He's the association treasurer and also the financial committee chair. And we'll talk about it a little bit. And so he's been doing quite a bit for us. He's not a board member, does not have to vote on the board, but he is an officer. And also we have Deborah Burtz. Oh, no, Deborah left. Oh, there she is. I didn't see that. Deborah Birdsong's our property manager. And because there's no other place in the meeting to really talk about that, I have to pay Deborah high compliments for how she's turned our staff around. From kind of the mess we were in a couple of years ago, a lot of bad things going on. Deborah has got this place staff-wise and professionally back on track. And I think we all owe her a little bit of gratitude for what she's done. A lot of overtime on her part. We also have Tracy with us today. If you call in the office very much, you've certainly talked to her. But Tracy came to us from the University of Oklahoma, the administration staff, and she's been doing an outstanding job with her position too. So Tracy, thank you for what you're doing. Okay, on our agenda, did everybody get their handouts and their agendas? I read right next to Rebecca Radman. Yes, Rebecca's, Rebecca handles our marketing for the most part. At least she oversees it because that's her job. That's her training, that's her expertise. She owns a marketing company. So yeah, thank you, Rebecca, for all the time you put into that besides just your board duties. Sorry about that. Okay, if you have your agenda today, the first item on our agenda is to it says vote counting, but it's actually finished the vote counting. Did anybody bring a vote with them today that we need to add? Because we counted votes at 9:30 this morning just to get ahead of the game so we didn't have to stop this show for a half hour while we counted votes. No other votes coming in from the audience? I'm going to let Deborah announce the vote count because she was there, she did it, and evacuated and three other timeshare owners there monitoring and doing it with you.
Yes, we had three individuals that volunteered to come in to help count. One individual opened them up. The next individual read off the unit number and the response that they had put down, and we had a separate individual do the tallies. We actually did this twice to make sure that the vote was concurrent with the first, everything matched up. We had 30 timeshare owners vote yes. We had 5 timeshare owners vote no. We had 21 private owners vote yes, and 3 private owners vote no. So we have a total of 51 yes votes and 8 no votes for the level 2.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, well, the owners have spoken. I think the survey spoke loudly, if you've read that, and it looks like the voting members followed the survey. And I just want to remind everybody of a couple of things here. The board didn't need to do this. It's not in our governing documents that we had to go this route, but we tried to go as far as we could because in the beginning we did not, at one point we had 5 private members on the board. Now we have Jim here as a timeshare owner. We've got 4 and 1, but this board decided we do not want to force this kind of a financial package on all of the owners without them having some say-so. So that's why we had the survey, and that's why we put it to a vote of the voting members. I've received several comments that it's not fair that the private owners should even be voting on this. And you know, I probably had at least a dozen of those comments. And I'll tell you why we're voting on it as private members, because our governing documents call for that. We're bound by our governing documents, which Missouri law binds us to our governing documents, and there is no provision to separate timeshare versus private owners when we have any votes. So that's why we did it this way. But I want to point it out with the results we have, even if we took every private member vote and tore it up, it still passed by a wide majority from the timeshare owners. So again, I think they're speaking loud and clear, and that's the position that the board will take, and that's the direction we're heading. By the way, if you want to comment along the way, go ahead. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'd like to comment.
Wait, let me say one thing first before you comment.
I'm not a voting member.
Pardon?
I'm not a voting member.
Okay, you don't have to be a voting member, but let me go over this slide first.
Okay.
Rules of engagement. This meeting is being video recorded, audio recorded, because we tried to get a Zoom meeting going so that all members who wanted to attend could attend, and it was impossible because the internet's out in the church, and we can't fix that. So what we're doing is recording this. It's going to be posted to YouTube, and all owners will get notification that they can go to YouTube and see this. So keep in mind you're being recorded. Any owner who wishes to speak today, please raise your hand so that we can bring you a microphone so that you can speak clearly into the microphone so we have a good, clear record of what's going on today. When you get the microphone, please state your name, your unit number, and if you're a timeshare or a private owner, so we sort of know the direction this is coming from. And it doesn't matter which way the vote went today, it doesn't matter which way the assessments go today, somebody's not going to be happy with it. So we all know that already. But keep your comments today, please keep them professional and just keep a good tone about what we're doing today. Not here to get into a brawl, we're just going to discuss business. Okay, with that being said, anytime you want to talk, just please raise your hand.
I'm Donna Williams, and we have 46 of Unit 101. I just want to know how many of the voting members, and the voting members, in my opinion, are sort of like a secret society out there. But I want to know how many of the voting members for the timeshare owners actually contacted the other members of their unit to find out how they felt they should be voted for, and how many timeshare owners were actually contacted by their voting member to see how they would like their vote to be heard or whatever. And I would like to see a show of hands. But if nobody knows any, how many people actually were contacted by their voting member? Or how many voting members actually contacted our timeshare? Because they were voting for 50 people. And it seems to me that they should have at least gotten an opinion of their members. I mean, in this day and age, when you have a computer and you can get emails of people, that you should, this just to me isn't really a fair representation of a vote.
Okay, and your point has been brought up by multiple people recently because of all of the flurry of activity that we're doing now, and especially when we have a vote of this magnitude. But ma'am, your point is addressed on the last point of our slides today, and we're going to specifically talk about the voting system. So I'd like to table your question until we get to that point of the meeting. But thank you.
If I can just make a real, I know 2 units specifically that did contact our office for the contact information for all the individuals in their unit. So I can tell you for a fact, 2 voting members contacted us.
Yeah, and we'll pick that up as the last item on our agenda today. Because it's a big concern, and the board's very concerned about it also. Okay, this loan assessment payback, the one that we just voted in, the voting members voted in, it's $450 per week, timeshare week, per year. Now that might go plus or minus just a little bit, because we're looking at 2 ways to do this. As you know, a 2-bedroom unit usually pays a little bit less of a regular assessment than a 3-bedroom unit. So we're thinking, should we make a sort of a separation like that, one a little higher and one a little lower to account for 2 or 3 bedrooms? Or the other thing that we're looking at right now is we know the 2-bedroom units are going to be more expensive in many cases to renovate than the 3-bedroom units. Number one, we didn't know this until we went out and started doing all of our building inspections for this. 2-bedroom units have more windows than 3-bedroom units, which is the single most expensive item in a renovation. Also, the 2-bedroom units are in much worse condition. They were built first, and the 3-bedroom units came along much later. So it may be that we just go for the same special assessment for everyone, because it's not going to be much difference anyway, and for the reasons I gave, it seems like that might be fair. That's not been decided yet, but you can expect this 450 to be the same for everyone, or plus or minus just a little bit. Okay, I just want to set the foundation for this, to how this board looks at everything we do, every piece of business we do. And this board, 3 of us, John, I, and Chris Arndt, started out together 3.5 years ago. Rebecca and Jim came along just a little later. Jim was the last new guy on it, but across the board, this is how we look at things. Ensure the long-term financial stability of the association is the most important thing we have to do, and that protects all of you. Keeping our assessments, our property value as high as we can for everyone, and keeping our assessments as low as possible through efficiencies and through ways that we can try to trim the cost. And then, obviously, create the richest vacation experience that we can with the money that we have to deal with. So, again, everything that you're going to see going forward, you can refer back to which one of these, or more than one of these, are we trying to get on the head. What we're trying to do as our vision is return Treetop to its position that it was several decades ago as the premier boutique resort at the lake. And with the money we have to spend, we're going to get as close to that as we can. Now the board has a big responsibility, along with the finance committee that we'll talk about here in a minute, of planning and executing this program that we're jumping into. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, but fortunately, we've got some really smart people helping us out. So thirdly, to manage funding the renovation with the special assessments and the supplemental income that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. Ron's a CPA. He's our treasurer. He was very gracious in volunteering a tremendous amount of time. You know, Ron, I've never hit speed dial and Ron didn't pick up the phone and within 2 rings. And to have somebody like that, a CPA, you know, working for the board as a volunteer is just amazing, and it's a great gift that we have right now. So Ron, I'll let you go through your treasury report on that. Thank you for what you do, by the way. Thank you.
Quite well, Bob. And by the way, you get answered on the 2nd or 3rd ring unless it's nap time. Okay, one of the handouts that was available on the table over there was the financial statements, balance sheet, and income statement. Did everybody get a copy of that? I'll briefly go over because quite honestly, there's a lot of important things to discuss in the current financial condition. Actually, speaking of the current financial condition, it's pretty good. We've got about $548,000 in the bank. That's an increase of $65,000 from a year ago at this time. The accounts receivable has gone way down because we recognize the fact that a lot of the accounts receivable that have been put on the books the prior year just weren't any good. People were dead, people were gone through bankruptcy, people who lived out of the country. So our accounts receivable position is a lot better than it was and has been in the past. Let's flip over to the income statement. It's a 2-page document. Just a few items of note here that are changes from prior years. As Bob alluded to, and we'll talk about it a great deal later on, we're doing a lot of work on debt collection. We are calling people who are delinquent and encouraging them to pay the debt, and also offering them the opportunity to exit the property owner association. The debt collection program has brought in about $49,000 in revenue, and we've collected about $102,000 in exit fees. As far as inflationary impact on the financials, we're running into the same problem that every business does. Our health insurance has gone up astronomically, as has other insurance. And right now we are in a position where if something needs to be repaired or replaced, it is. If it's something that can wait down the road a little bit, then that is deferred. But if a roof needs to be replaced, it's replaced immediately as soon as we get a contractor here. Are there any questions on the financial statements? Yes. Mike.
My name is Tom Handley. I'm a timeshare owner, Unit 62. So I get a short walk to the pool every year. One of the questions involves the income statement. The bad debts, $416,000. Is that where you're basically writing off a lot of those bad debts? That's why the accounts receivable went down?
Yes, it is. Approximately $750,000 to $800,000 in bad debts in 2021.
Really? Another question for you, and maybe this will be, we'll get to it further down the line. My background, I spent over 40 years as an actuary. So one of the questions I have is you're looking at the financial viability and trying to keep assessment as low as possible, and I understand that, is do we have a benchmark, and maybe the accounting profession does this, but do we have a target as to what we want to have in terms of our retained earnings relative to income, so that we can maintain a certain level of financial stability. Because we kind of got in this position because, the assessments were too low in prior years. I think everybody recognizes that.
Well, the primary thing we look at is the operating budget. What's it take to keep the lights on and people happy? And as far as accumulating huge amounts of money for possible future improvements or repairs, no, we don't do that. We accumulate some, but not a whole lot. Does that address your question?
My question is to, and I was in the insurance industry, and, those of you may or may not be familiar, but insurance companies are required by law to retain a lot of, money in terms of assets that, offset the liabilities, the claims they're going to have to pay, and they hold a lot of money in surplus, and there's a minimum level required by the state by law. And my the reference was to a certain level of retained earnings, so when time comes up that we need to repair roofs or replace windows that were broken or paint the outside or sort of a reserve fund maintained to address ongoing and future liabilities, so we're not looking at a bank loan 10 years down the road that our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay. We can address it now. I mean, you're going out for a bank loan now that could have been avoided if the assessments were at the proper levels over the last 30 years. I've had my property almost 40 years. And so the assessments have been $50 or $100 more every year, we wouldn't be having this discussion, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about, and the answer is, you're right, it hasn't been done over past decades, but we are doing it now. And we will publish the entire budget, multi-pages. It'll be online in just a few days, as soon as we can get it up there. And what you're going to see is that we're now funding the reserve funds. We have two of them, one for timeshare maintenance and one for the common area. Timeshare maintenance, as I recall in the budget, is about $146,000 this year we will put into the reserve fund. I would like to see the reserve fund up around the $500,000 to $600,000 level, because it does exactly what you're saying. It takes care of anticipated refurbishments, like that a mattress is only going to last 7 years and a roof is only going to last 15, and so on and so forth. And you got to look ahead and have a reserve plan for that. And secondly, it takes care of unanticipated emergencies. A fire, a tornado, something blows up, and that's what a reserve fund's for. So yes, this board exactly has set up those reserve. We have separate accounts for them, and we are funding those reserve funds. Now, I will say that we've spent down the common area reserve fund lately, because if you notice the lighting project that just went in. Common area is not so scary because there's not a lot that can go wrong with trees and dirt. Maybe a swimming pool malfunction or something like that. Timeshare, that's a whole different story. The bad things can happen that cost a lot of money. So that's where we're focusing on getting those reserves built up. Does that answer your question, sir?
I want to compliment you. The board, the plan you come up with and the work you've done in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been following all the conversations. I want to compliment the board for their efforts. It is exceptional. I've been on other boards and associations, and they don't go through this. They end up, dealing with problems and irritating all of the members.
Thank you for that.
Okay, here's a couple of comments I've got. First of all, I don't believe there's any state or federal requirement that a property owners association maintain a specific cash balance. Here's what we've got. This is as of October 31st. The maintenance reserve accounts have $182,000 in it. The common area reserve, $58,000. Renovation account, $95,000. General operating accounts got $194,000 balance. So that's what makes up the bulk of our $547,000 cash in bank.
Any more questions?
Yes, thank you.
And
This lady?
I was tell me, because I'm looking at the housekeeping department and the payroll expenses. And I assume that means the number of the people that work. And how many employees do we have?
Let's let Deborah talk about that.
20, we have 24 employees.
And how many are housekeeping?
14?
Was it 14?
14. Well,
And are they all full-time?
No, they are not all full-time. You have your housekeeping supervisor and your and the housekeeping assistant, which would be considered full-time. They get close to 80 hours for their 2-week payroll. There's a lot of times they don't, but those would be the two that are closest. Most of your other housekeepers would be considered part-time for the times they work. You have some that work, just Fridays and Sundays, or Thursday, Fridays and Sundays, on the main days that we need them. But the majority of your housekeepers are part-time.
And so the office staff is composed of what?
The office staff is composed of myself, and there are 4 other individuals in there. Tracy, who handles our owner feedbacks through the timeshare exit policy and accounts receivable. You have Haley Duncanson, who is our accounts payable. She also handles our rentals and other reservations that come in through exchange guests or owners direct. Kim Trobe is our debt collection individual for that project, and Erica Jeffries, who is the lady who works in the office on the weekends and helps out in the office, and they're all considered full-time.
question over here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'm a timeshare owner, and I've been here since '81, probably one of the first ones.
Can you name, sir?
Excuse me?
Your name, please?
Ken Stone. My question was, a couple of years ago, you raised my assessment. You said you needed to raise the assessment to catch up. And at that time, I thought you were going to go ahead and make innovations from that additional assessment. How far along have you gotten? Since I'm now paying close to $800 to maybe $1,000, per week, and it used to be $300 or $400 per week. So how far along have you gotten after that special assessment?
Okay, and I don't have that in front of me. It's in the last newsletter, and I published all the details of what we've spent this money for. But, I want to reemphasize that when you are paying the $300 or $400 per month is the reason that we're having this conversation today. We've spent every dollar that we've collected for renovation, on that special assessment, which was either 96 or 105 for 2 and 3 bedroom, has been spent on renovation items, except for some money that's still in the bank waiting to be spent. We've taken it everything by priority, but one of the highest priorities we had was mattresses. Some of these mattresses were 20 years old. Can you imagine? So we've spent $75,000 replacing all the mattresses and the linens that were worn and torn and stained and so on and so forth. We put new roofs on, we've repaired decks and stairs, we've done the streets with the common renovation money. It's all been spent where it should be spent for, but I'll have to refer you back to the most recent newsletter that's on the website. It'll give you a detail of how this money was spent. Does that answer your question?
Well, when I see that detail, I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, my phone number and email is all over everything,
Yes.
so you can call me at home or whatever.
I got it. Looking at the financials there, as a CPA myself, I'm a little bit concerned that I have a reconciliation discrepancy of $7,700. Now, when I teach my students in accounting how to do rate, I don't expect to see any reconciliation discrepancies. Why in the heck can't we reconcile a bank account?
Well, I think help me out on this, Dad, isn't that unrecorded rentals?
Yes. Yes, that would be correct.
Which page is that on?
That's on page 2. It's in
That's
the,
also negative, that's a positive, it doesn't.
yeah, but it's still a discrepancy, and how could we possibly have a discrepancy of that magnitude? When you,
Like I said, it's all different. I think what it is, it's unrecorded rentals.
unrecorded rental. So, unrecorded rental. So would that not be unrecorded income on the balance sheet?
Maybe on income statement.
Unearned income?
No, it's earned income. I think it's rentals that didn't get recorded properly, where money showed up in the bank account. The problem with the rentals is a lot of them come in via ACH credit, increasing the account with no explanation. And how much time you spend tracking it down, you gotta draw the line someplace.
Anything else? Okay,
Yes.
ma'am.
Is there a
Wait,
difference?
one moment, please.
Is there a difference between pest service
Can you
and,
please identify your name?
Ginger Crooks, Unit 54?
Thank you.
Is pest service and extermination the same thing?
As far as I know, unless we're talking about squirrels and other varmints, is it on there twice? I'm not sure what you're.
Well, it's on the year before, it's under, extermination. For this year, it's under, pest service.
It's inconsistent in the way the expenses were recorded. It's the same type of expense, it just went to different accounts.
And what about bank charges? It seems rather high.
Have you had a chance to look at that yet?
Not yet.
Okay. It's, I looked at it last month and it's 2 or 3 bad checks that we got.
How much do you get charged for bank?
No, it's the bad check itself. One of them, I think, was $1,100.
A lot of times when individuals go to pay online, they can pay by ACH, and it may be 3-4 days later. Sometimes, I mean, you can ask Tracy, sometimes even a week later, then we'll get a notification from the bank saying, that this ACH was returned. Then we have to go back through, undo everything, try to get a hold of the individual, and we do charge them the bad check charge. To be fair, if we get charged that by the bank, then, then we're gonna charge them for it.
Okay, how about, fuel for maintenance? The year before, we had a substantial amount, but there's nothing reported for this year.
Inconsistent usage of accounts.
It's in the master budget that'll be posted online. I know that because I went through all the receipts. Remember, we posted the fuels from last year. So I'm not sure, I don't have that document you have in front of me, but when you see the multi-page master budget coming out, you will find maintenance fuel in there because I did it myself.
And, the legal fees, that was substantially more than the year before.
Yes.
Collection efforts.
I'm sorry?
Legal fees for collection of bad debts.
Okay, and, well, we already talked about the reconciliation discrepancies. Then there's postage and shipping and postage and delivery. That's just a posting that got put in the wrong place.
Yes, those two should actually be kind of combined, because most of our items do go under the postage and the shipping.
Okay,
For one,
thank
because
you.
we actually have a postage meter that we send all of our mailings out on, which we actually save by doing that, because before they did it just with stamps, just regular postage stamps. Then when we got the postage meter, we're actually saving money a little bit on each of them that we do send out.
Okay, thank you.
And, I just want to say about this budget, when you see it posted online again, you'll see 12 or 15 pages. I can't remember exactly. But if you think back about 4 years ago and before that, your budget came to you on one piece of paper with about 25 line items. This board is trying to be so transparent and break down all the costs. It's so detailed that you can see exactly where all this money is going. As a new private owner in 2017, when I asked to see what my assessments went for, there were 12 line items that didn't add up to the bottom line. And I asked the question because I thought I was looking at something wrong. And they said, no, it's never added up. And that's what the budget used to be. But, I'm not saying we don't ever make mistakes, because we do. And sometimes we look at money and say, this is not quite right. But I'm telling you, we're putting it. Look at our budgets, and they're all as transparent as we can make them. Okay, moving on. Oh, sorry, another question?
Vicki Blackwell, and owner of timeshare owner of 61 and 102. I have a couple of questions. Did I read it correctly that the special assessment, you said $150, give or take, will be in place of the special assessment that we're already under?
Yes. You will have one special assessment starting on January 1st, and it will be the loan construction payback assessment.
Okay, so it's actually going to increase maybe $100 what we're paying already.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yes, there's an increase this year. It's unavoidable. Yes, there's an increase in your regular assessment.
Okay, that special one that we've been paying will be taken away.
Yes, again, you'll have two assessments as a timeshare owner. Well, you'll have one assessment, but it's broken into two parts. That's the maintenance part of it and the common area, but that's called your regular assessment. In addition to that, you're going to have the loan payback assessment, which is going to be approximately $450. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Okay. And the other one was, you talked about the reserve fund and maintenance fund. Can those go back and forth? Can I take something out of maintenance for possibly renovations? Or can that fund only be used for renovations?
Okay, let me see if I can answer this the way you're asking it. As a timeshare owner, well, as all owners, private and timeshares, there are two pots of money. There's maintenance money, which also includes operations and office and staff. And then there's common money. Common means streets, sewers, and all the other snow removal and all the dumpsters, and et cetera, et cetera. You cannot take out of maintenance money and use it in common or vice versa. It has to stay in its own pot. Now, you can take it out of common reserve and spend it on a common item, or maintenance reserve on a maintenance item, but you can't cross common and maintenance, timeshare maintenance.
As well as those reserve funds, you can't do.
Well, the reserve funds, yeah, you couldn't take a maintenance reserve and spend it on a common area item. If it's a maintenance regular account or a reserve account, it has to be spent on maintenance. Same with the common.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, let's talk a little bit about the finance committee again. We've got four pretty smart guys on here. There's a newsletter back there. You can read about their bios, but all four are timeshare owners, and that's one thing the board set out to do, is to get some fair representation for the timeshare owner community on this whole process we're going through. Jeff has done a lot of board work through associations, a lot of construction projects, big construction projects, and a lot of city government construction projects with city government. Larry is an retired recently, executive banking guy, but he also was a consultant for Deloitte & Touche, so he's got quite the background. Claire is a financial advisor who works with numbers all day long. And not only are these guys coming to us with their experience, but they're spending an extreme amount of time going through what we've done right now. Ron chairs the committee. We meet every week via Zoom, and we've got an agenda, and we go through this whole thing. We ask each other tough questions. You know, I'm kind of not the smartest guy in this room, for sure, but these guys come up with some good stuff. So again, Ron, thank you all for what you're doing there very much. Any questions about the committee? Okay. Just real quick, just to review, what's Treetop Village look like? We've got 46 timeshare units, 18 of them are 2-bedroom, 28 are 3-bedroom. We've got 25 private units, and this is something that was never talked much about before, but we also have Hugo property contributing to our finances. I call it 14 phantom units. What that means is they don't exist. There is no unit. This is the old Budweiser ground, which if you're looking out into the main channel, it's off to the point on the right where that one boat dock is, and it's about 30 plus acres out there. Back in the day when Treetop was invented, and they had a plat that said we would have 14 more properties along that coastline, and then the Anheuser-Busch family came in, the Bush family, and said, we'd love to have that, and they made a deal, and the deal was that they would pay in perpetuity common expenses for those 14 flats. So they pay 14 times the common assessment, which last year was about $35,000. So that's when you see the name Hugo Properties. They'll never be here in the room probably. They have one executive that handles this, and I talk to him occasionally on the phone. Of our 46 timeshare units, there are 51 possible weeks for ownership, with the 52nd week being a maintenance week. You probably know that. That leaves 918 weeks in the 2-bedroom units, and a possibility of, well, existing 1,428 weeks in the 3-bedroom units, or 2,346 total weeks in the association that are available for ownership. Now we're going to talk about why our assessments are increasing, and we're going to continue to increase. 3 things we're dealing with this year, which has been going on for some time, that it really has pretty much been ignored, but it's the non-revenue producing interval properties. We'll get into that more. Also inflation. I mean, you see it every day, gas pumps, grocery store, wherever you go, you know, it's real, and we have to deal with it just like everybody else has to deal with it. We have been in 40 plus years, for the most of 40 years, the units have not been properly maintained. You all know from owning your own private homes, when you don't maintain something like a building, every year it gets incrementally worse if it's not taken care of. In 2021, this is what you'll find it on our documents last year. We had 376 or 16% of the weeks that had been deeded back, which means that's why they're association owned. So over the time of the history, up until that point, that's what the association owned. Of course, those do not produce income. 225 properties, or 10%, are owned by delinquent debtors. Many times we don't even know where these people are. We'll talk about in a few minutes about how we're trying to find them. But some of them are deceased, and we're trying to track them all down right now. But a year ago, a total of 601, or 26% of all the units were non-revenue producing. Now, let's look at 2023, what we're going to, yes, sir.
Yes.
One moment for my
I think I can probably project it now. If we own 587 units, do we attempt to rent those out at any time during the year so that they would not be just non-revenue producing units?
Yes, sir, we do. And that program was started with this board 3 years ago. It's the first time it was done, and we're producing now, I think, slightly more than $200,000 this year. I think we just crossed the $200,000 line.
So, in essence, they are not non-revenue producing, they're just not owned by individuals. If you're renting them out.
Well, okay, I'm only talking about assessments right now. And we're going to get into the supplemental income down the road in this free one.
Even with non-assessment, you still have the rental income coming in, correct?
Yes, sir, we do. And again, that'll be shown in a little bit. What I'm speaking to now is only about our assessments. Yep, ownership. So you can see the increase this year, 939 properties or 40% are not having assessments paid on that property. If you compare the 2 years, association owned, which is DBACs, is up 9%. Delinquencies is up 5% in the past year for a total of 14% increase. Or 338 properties totally increasing not paying assessments. And sir, all of these slides are going to be posted online. I see you're taking photos of them all, but they will all, this presentation will be posted just like you're seeing them. You can take all the pictures you want, but I just want you to know that. Okay, what's the result of a non-assessment revenue producing properties? This year, we're going to lose $57,960 in common assessments and a whopping $581,522 in maintenance assessments for a total loss of assessments of $639,482. So it's getting to be pretty significant. This says that, you know, this trend is not going to stop or reverse itself for sure. Why? Because owners who purchased 30 to 40 years ago are aging out. And that's most of our exits right now. When people call us and they, you know, I just can't do it anymore. Medical problems, health problems, and so forth. That is by far the largest of the exits that we have today. People are just hitting that age group. And we're not even at the top of that bubble yet. That's going to continue on. Debtors, you know, you saw it was up 5% over last year. There's no control that we have over that if they refuse to pay. And then we have the lack of new sales. Well, why can't we sell these units? There's 2 reasons. First of all, the legacy timeshare model is far out of date. People have Airbnb, VRBO, no commitments financially, turn on a dime and go anywhere you want, versus being strapped with this payment forever. And to the same property unless you're an interval trader and trade out. So the timeshare legacy model is just not, young people don't like this model. And I realize it works for most of the people here, but it's not sellable in today's younger market. Also, the condition the units are in right now. They're worn. You know, that's what the renovation is all about. But the fact that if you look at our reviews on TripAdvisor and Google, you'll see that any negative review we have will say the property's old and tired and worn. We get many great staff, clean, very nicely clean, a lot of good things, but it's always, you're going to see something negative, it's going to be the property's worn. So that's one thing. If we could get it back up to speed, we could have more chance of selling any units that we have available. And then back into the non-producing revenue, as it says, when 50% are non-producing, and my personal prediction is that's going to be before the end of next year, just based on the trend we've seen in the last 3 years. Now we're going to lose $727,000. And again, the trend's not going to stop, so obviously this model becomes unsustainable by the people that are left behind to pay the bills. But we'll talk about in a minute our solution to do this, because on the path we're headed right now, we can't continue. It's not going to work. And then we got to talk about inflation. And this is, you can go find this on the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report. CPI Consumer Price Index up 8.2% in the past 12 months and 8.3% in the 12 months before that, which is over the time we're comparing these 2 years right now. So a total of 16.5% in the last 24 months. Energy alone, and we use a lot of energy when you talk about electricity, which the bill is 120 or 30,000 as I recall, you know, that's a big chunk of our energy, or of our budget, 19.8%. Our cost of labor has gone up 8% in 2022, which according to the inflation index, you know, we're slightly under that, so that's not too bad. But as Ron pointed out earlier, we had a 26.3% medical cost across the board of our employees last year that we're still absorbing. These are things we have zero control over, but we do have to manage. So there's no way to talk ourselves out of this. We're behind financially. We're solid financially, but we're behind, and we got to keep doing what we're doing to catch up. With all that we just said, we had this year a $67,500 or only a 5% increase over the 2023 budget. Next, well, we already talked about, we're going to lose $639,482 due to the DPACs. Okay, brighten a little good news in here. This gets into our supplemental income. We're projected to earn $434,330,000 next year. That comes, I won't read the list, but that comes from the programs. All of these programs were created by this board in the last 3.5 years. Before that, none of this existed. This speaks back to your renting the units. Right now, you can go online on VRBO, Airbnb, and you can go onto our website and find them all there, the units for rent. We're renting out, of course, all the association-owned units, but we're also renting the debtor units where people haven't shown up for years and might owe $6,000 or $7,000. We know they're not going to show up tomorrow and pay their bill, so we're renting their units. And what do we do with that money? We credit it back to their account. Because if we ever get called on the carpet for this legally, and the judge asks us, why were you renting somebody's personal property out? We're going to, and what did you do with that money? We're going to say we gave it back to them. We credited their account with it. But it's no different to us as Treetop Village. It's income. It's income that we can spend just like if it was an assessment. I'm just looking for any hands to raise along the way. Does anybody want to take a short break, get something to drink, eat? I would like to. I need 5 minutes. So let's take a couple of minutes. Chris, are you still with us?